Martin Show. We talk with Rob Browne of SEC Sidelines, talking basketball and the transfer portal. Dan Bond with a wrap-up of softball and gymnastics. And then the great one, Buddy Martin, will join us to talk about the Florida Gators in the draft and all that and more on the Tuesday edition of the Buddy Martin Show. Tell it like it is. Tuesday is now. Let's get it.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. I'm your host, Loren Meadows, here with Brendan Martin of SEC Sidelines, Gator Media, all those things. There you go. Rob Browne of SEC Sidelines, and Dan Bond joins us from Gator Bait Media, staff writer, all-around fan. You can see his background there, and just happy to see you guys tonight. Before we get started, I just want to make a couple announcements. My boy Brendan's got me branching out a little bit, trying to get my footprint out. So we want to just throw some things at you. You know, a lot of you follow the show, and we appreciate that. Definitely appreciate you supporting me. But also, you can also follow me. Going to start doing some more things on X at Real Gator. So Real Ohio Gator, excuse me. So my X handle is at Real Ohio Gator. And follow me on Instagram at Ohio Gator 4, the number 4. Life. So starting to branch out, do some things. Brendan's got me going a little bit, but you know, just trying to bring more content to you folks, and just get your thoughts, engage with you a little bit more, and that's what we aim to do here at the Buddy Martin Show. SEC
Loren's growing up. He's all grown up now.
Yeah,
he's
trying to do a little something.
He's going to have his own show.
Yeah,
now.
well, we'll see.
Watch out, folks. The Loren Meadows Hour.
Yeah,
the report.
You know, definitely glad to continue to be part of the family. And obviously this thing we have going, it's been a lot to talk about. And, you know, just looking forward to the future for sure. How you doing, Dan?
Oh, doing great.
Good.
Been a nice run in Texas with the Gators. And
yeah.
Stuff to see and do. You know, we're a little sad because Mike Patrick had passed away today. If you
yeah. Shout out
some
to Mike
roots in Jacksonville, Florida, and you know, some of my older siblings actually reached out to me because of being in Jacksonville about him passing away, and he started out at the local Channel 4 over there. But you know, on with that, he's a good guy, and
Mike Patrick definitely.
You know, as we've mentioned on the show, you know, so some of these the old ones are.
Yeah, they
none of us
away,
live
man.
Forever, but
We'll be joined by one of the legends here in a little bit, and Buddy Martin for sure, and definitely want to cherish Buddy for as long as we can. But Rob, transfer portal, man, it's crazy. Were you shocked at I mean, I want to ask you, Aberdeen, you know, leaving Florida after you know, what I thought, you know, you look at, you know, both of them, I think got cheated out of 6-man, but I think it had Tommy Houck as maybe the number 1 6-man.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could arguably say that Denzel Aberdeen was the most effective backup point guard in the SEC, if not the country, when it came down to it. I saw a quote. It was funny when he decided to go in the transfer portal. Somebody said, well, sorry to see him go, but he really didn't have he really didn't have much to do with us winning the Natty. And I was like, no. What games were you watching? And you know, I know that they got Xavier Lee to come in, point guard from Princeton, has the only triple-double in Princeton history. definitely was going to go be impactful. But I thought that, maybe he and Denzel could play, because they both come with size 6'4", 6'5", play maybe a 1 and, and a 2, or even almost like a double point guard lineup. But, just didn't work out that way. Some people say money, some people say playing time. But I think the biggest thing is that he has landed in Lexington with Mark Pope and the University of Kentucky. And, I think it speaks to the landscape, this generation, just how things, I couldn't do that, and now this is like Florida's mortal enemy when it comes to basketball. And now Denzel Lambert. And I think Kentucky comes here. I'm not sure if it's as early as it was this year, but they come to Florida next year. I mean, it's gonna be high drama, and there'll be some get back. But yeah, crazy, Rob.
Well, there's no loyalty, and the fans will figure out how this stuff works, and the players are going to feel the wrath of the fans, because Denzel Buddy Martin had identified him as a key player on that Gator team, one of the good storylines to follow. And I was at the park with the dog, listening to Chuck Oliver's podcast. My friend, I went to Auburn with him. I like to listen to him. Madden Iyamaliava stops by Fayetteville, has a few cups of coffee, gets a wad of money, and now Hunter Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas, has signed off on it, and apparently they're going to take legal action. This is what's got to happen, because I've had a contract before. We've all had them. 5 years, 3 years, whatever. You don't violate the contract. So I'm sad to see Denzel Aberdeen leave, because God bless. He could have, no matter what happened, always been tied into that 500,000 Gator alumni network. Powerful.
Right. Orlando kid, man. I mean, I think he, and sometimes it's the unsung heroes, man. It's not always the Clayton Juniors and the, the Will Richards and those guys and the Condons. And if that group comes back, man, I mean, if you find Condon and Chinyelu back on campus in the fall, with CJ Ingram and Alex Lloyd and Isaiah Brown and possibly his brother coming down from OU, who's a bigger kid, can help you down inside. I mean, this is a team, Dan, that was set for another run. And so you have to ask yourself sometime. And then I want to get to another transfer that I think Rob will have an idea or opinion on. But, Dan, I mean, when you look at a guy like Aberdeen, who was applauded for his loyalty and things like that, and I'm not knocking Denzel, it just speaks to, we continue to speak to the change in landscape in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. They've got to fix that, because, like Rob was saying, here's a guy that could have been like worshipped like the 04s, and and make another run. There was talk about that. I think he said that even in the locker room about making another run for back to back, and then here out of nowhere he leaves. You kind of knew Alexis was going to leave, but. Yeah, I mean, you've got all these one and dones, and now you got one and transfer. It's kind of
no doubt. No doubt.
It's frustrating, as a fan. You want some of those guys to come back, and I think that's some of the appeal of the non-revenue sports, is that those folks stay put somewhat, and you like to see that person for 3 or 4 years at least.
And then another move that seems to be a little bit less about money, I guess, Rob, or you can enlighten me. Our favorite Auburn swingman announced that he will be leaving Auburn. Chad Baker Mazzara is now, this is school number 4, 5.
What the hell? What does it matter?
By the time the season ends, he will be 27 years old.
Yeah.
And which whatever that, I mean,
medical school is tough.
But I mean, was that expected down there?
He did it last year. Chad did it last year.
Okay.
And came back.
Okay.
And I first thing I did was talk to Jason Caldwell, who was on our show yesterday, AU Undercover. He said that's the least surprising bit of news that I've heard. And Everybody likes him. But look, I'm going to be completely transparent. I've switched jobs before and was paid well to do it. Had a 5-year contract. And my manager was out of town at a meeting when I left. And in the business that I'm in, there's no goodbyes. It's not pretty. But I didn't do it strictly for, but that's what people think. I can identify, not this kind of money, not millions, but I have friends that did take 2.5 or 5 million to leave. And a lot of them, they blew through that money so fast, and they were adults in their 35, 40 years of age. An 18, 19-year-old, I'm just going to say, I think I love all of y'all. If we're 18 years old, somebody offers Brendan 1.5 million. I look at it.
Well,
Dan, like, what are we going to do?
Well, y'all
can't be too critical.
Y'all didn't know Charles Meadows. My father would have let me starve, eat potted meat and beanies and weenies. He'd have let the school, but once I signed it, I mean, he would have been like, okay, you signed for, I wasn't worth 2 nickels rubbed together, but they offered you $500. That's what you're gonna play for. So I would have
never seen it. My parents would have taken it. Uncle Boo, my godfather, was an investment guy. That's where I learned it. I would have never seen it. It'd have been put away, but I'd have taken it.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Dan,
no doubt.
I know you would have.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you hear about the rookies coming to the NFL, NBA, and they burn through it, or they get a fishy agent like Fred Taylor had that took all his money. So that's going to happen with these kids too. So let's get some contracts. Let's get them to stay. Let's close some of these windows of transfer so it's not complete chaos.
I got a question to ask y'all. I heard this discussion about all the players, the great players Steve Spurrier had come through Florida. How many of them had, great offensive careers in the NFL? And the one guy that people said would be most likely to be in the Hall of Fame was the man from Belgrade, Florida. Uncle Charlie. But the one guy that the consensus on this panel was Fred Taylor's most likely the one that'll make it to the NFL Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, out of Belgrade, Florida. You know why? He's from the muck.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they grow him rough in the muck, and obviously Fred Taylor, class dude. Obviously, the things they're doing with the pivot, and it's funny, man. It's a PR game, and you take a guy like Fred Taylor who never really, hadn't done anything wrong, but just I think was so humble that he wasn't out there, so to speak. You look at his numbers, you go back and look at his highlights, you're like, wow. But sometimes it's like he's one of those forgotten running backs. And then you look at the list and he's like right there, but it's almost like Curtis Martin, same kind of deal. It's just, just production. And I think with the pivot, with what they're doing with Ryan Clark and another Florida alum, Channing Crowder, I think that's helped him, immensely. And Dan, you cut your teeth in Jacksonville. You're a Nice guy. You and Tebow and Brendan Martin there. I got you, Brendan.
15. I wore 15 at East High School. Okay, on varsity.
But I mean, a guy.
Yeah, he was in a time in Jacksonville there weren't as many eyeballs on him, and definitely if he was in a big market media, he's in already, I think. And if he's not banged up, he's in as a Jaguar. But he'll get it.
I think so too. I think that I think it's definitely coming. But it'll be interesting. And we're about less than 48 hours from the NFL draft. We'll get with Buddy and talk about the prospect that some of the Gators have to be drafted. Brendan, you got the ticker going, to kind of help us out with where these guys are projected to go and if it's too high, too low. But before we get there, talk about a couple of sports that Dan is definitely in tune with, particularly gymnastics. Dan, just kind of put a bow on, the disappointment that happened in Fort Worth, but maybe a look ahead, so to speak, and maybe kind of something positive. We know they didn't perform as well. Really, the two things that they do best, vault and floor, I think, kind of hoodwinked them a little bit. But where is this program? I'd hate to say it, and maybe I should say it too loud, but you've even heard rumblings of Roland can't win the big one, or is there ever going to be a national title in there for the Gators under Jenny Roland? I mean, are you hearing those things? What was the pulse in Fort Worth, or is it just people that maybe need to relax because in a sport that's so subjective,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that she runs a great program. We've got a great class coming in next year, and the year after is a really really big class coming in, and they just signed a great class. So you've got DiCello, who was hurt. You got didn't compete this year. She was maybe number 2 on the team last year, and she was up for an Olympic spot and tore an ACL. And Sky Blakely, who tore an ACL, would have made the Olympics, but she's back. So you've got those two who'll be able to do the all around. You've got Lily Birch, I think is her name. She was like a top recruit that didn't compete this year. So she's basically a red shirt that she's going to compete. She just couldn't find a spot on that roster this year, but we lose Leanne Wong. We lose quite a few folks, but they do reload, and it should be a positive with like the number 5 recruit coming in next year. And then again, 2 years from now, you've got like 3 of the top 10 are coming to Florida. So once you lose Selena Harris, that'll be able to reload there. So look for Selena and look for Anya Pilgrim to really step up and be your 1 and 2. And the freshman this year, where you have Lee Boy, who did the vault, who was really good as a true freshman, and Taylor Clark, who anchored floor with all those great athletes and floor routine ladies that they have over there. She was the anchor as a freshman, so she's just going to get better, and she's fun to watch.
Anybody thinking about if they do pass the 5 years, have you heard of anybody that may choose to come back and take that 5th year? Kind of use it as a pseudo. Okay.
I haven't heard. Yeah, I haven't heard. I was near Scott Carter on Thursday and Mary Howard on Saturday. So Saturday they crowned Oklahoma once again, 3 out of 4 times, and they won the all around with Bowers. She's very good. And but yeah, I didn't hear any of that. And again, sure, you want to get that natty, and that natty's been knocking at the door. And hey, I think we'd all take going to the Final Four every year or going to the playoffs every year in football and basketball.
So yeah.
So just relax a little bit. Don't be crazy, Gator, and support your teams and get on the NIL bus and chip in your $30 or $100.
Right, no doubt, Rob. And that something that and I've talked about it a little bit with women's basketball and the comparisons and the lack of resources when you look at them comparatively. But Dan brings up a good point. Maybe that's something we could dive into for the next 10 minutes. We want to hit softball a little bit with Dan. But Rob, I want to ask you. You look at a guy like Bruce Pearl, couple Final Fours. You look at a guy like Kelvin Sampson, 2 straight Final Fours, and then somebody like Jenny Roland, where she's been, what is it, Dan? Technically the Final Four, how many years in a row? I mean, it just crazy. And
right.
When did that not? I mean, I think if we went to the Final Four and even would have lost, people would have loved and just embraced Todd Golden for going once. But if you went consistently, when does that start to, wear on people to where that's not enough anymore, Rob?
If they don't look at history, Coach K went to 5 Final Fours before he won one. And in his 42-year career at Duke, he went to 13, but he only won 5.
Mm-hmm.
John Wooden, 14 years before he won a national championship. Long time to do that. Good Lord. Dean Smith at North Carolina.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, they didn't think John Thompson could coach at Georgetown.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Look around. Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. He's horrible. He had, I think, in the 5th year, a 3-8. He just stuck to it. I think you're going to start seeing more people manage athletic departments like money managers manage portfolios. Because if you're just selling and buy all the time and not thinking about the consequences, you're not going to get anywhere. If you had a vegetable garden and you went out every day in the backyard and pulled up the tomatoes and the eggplants and the squash by the roots every day to check their progress, you're not going to get anywhere. If I'm Florida, 273 SEC championships all time, 13 or 14 in track and field with Mike Holloway, men's and women's, you're good in everything. You just won the national championship in basketball. The Arkansas fans say this with Dave Van Horn. I'm telling you, the damn pop fly in 2018, poor guy.
Right. Yeah, no doubt.
But, you can go from being the hero, the GOAT, to the GOAT. People don't talk about it. 2013 for Auburn, Chris Davis runs back to kick 6. They don't talk about in the national championship game against Florida State, Kelvin Benjamin, right over on top of him, wins the game with 13 seconds left. No one talks about that.
Right.
Go back and study your history. You got a gymnastics program that's elite. Elite. I'm talking your Final Four. You're going to get there, and it's going to be worth the wait.
Well, and I want to, transition real quick, but I do want to throw this out there is, like I said, people would have accepted an Elite Eight, a Final Four out of Ty Golden, not even winning it. They will accept a 10-2 and just making the playoff with Billy Napier. But then I talk to those very same people who root for those sports, and it's like now Jenny Rowland will never win. I had conversations with people about this. I don't even cover gymnastics like that. Dan is the expert, but you hear things here living in Gainesville, and not only does she have a sharp wardrobe, she got one hell of a program too. So in my opinion, I think that everybody needs to cool their jets. And another program that hasn't won one in a while.
There's a reason they won. She won Coach of the Year and they won Staff of the Year.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point.
Staff from top to bottom is solid.
Right. No doubt.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. That's why you're here. And another sport that you follow, softball. The Gators are currently 5th in the SEC, 11-7 in the conference, 39-10. Had a big weekend with walk-off win after kind of just really getting out the gate slow on Thursday night. Had walk-offs for the run rule on Friday night, and then the dramatic Corby Otis single to score Taylor Shoemaker to beat Alabama. Obviously Alabama, Florida. That's one of those quiet rivalries that doesn't get a lot of, but in softball, it's a pretty big deal. Where is this team now, Dan, in your opinion, as they head to LSU for a huge series, as well as, and then you got the big dogs, 4-time defending champs, Oklahoma, coming the week after?
Yeah, that Oklahoma Saturday game just got picked up by ESPN2. So again, more eyeballs, kind of the go back to gymnastics. That final was the most watched final. 1.5 million people watched that final. The semifinal with Florida was up 48% viewership from the year before. So, the eyeballs are there. Definitely, it was great to see Rothrock finally have a good outing. I know she didn't get the W on that last game, but she was like no-hitter through 6 innings. She had 3 really rough starts before that after being out injured. So I'm thinking maybe she can, got her groove back a little bit there. So if we can get her rolling a little bit, really, the pitching has picked up with her not being able to pitch. I feel, those backups have been getting some good outings, and just as a whole, you've got a lot of options in pitching, and the hitting will be there. Shoemaker went like 1 home run the last 21 games before this series, and she's back on fire.
Yeah, no doubt.
We're at the end of the year, and that's when you want those hitters to be really on point. And, if we got to win 10-9, then that's fine as long as you win.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. And you got Kendra Falvey. I think she's hitting like 450 in conference, arguably the best defensive outfielder in the country. Jossie Erickson still, playing well on defense, not hitting as well, but I think kind of coming out of that, she had a couple big hits this weekend. and you mentioned Shoemaker kind of coming out of her shell and different folks. But you know, this is the time where you start to look at things, and I think that could we see last year basically every SEC team made the tournament outside of I think Auburn. Is it going to be kind of like basketball was, where the SEC dominates the tournament again?
Oh, sure. I mean, Florida's 8th, even with this not Gator-like record for softball. No, Coach Walton would rather have some more W's, and but they're number 2 in RPI. I mean, they're beating each other up just like basketball. So I mean, they're all very good teams. You got Texas, who took 2 out of 3 in Gainesville, and obviously Oklahoma is just kind of the bar that you want to look at. So adding those 2 into softball definitely is going to pick everybody up. And again, I mentioned facilities from time to time because now we're talking NIL, but I do solidly believe those are important. You go to Texas, you go to OU, the facilities are awesome. A&M, you've been there plenty of times. You know what that's all about down there. So, yeah, we talk about the oil money in Texas, but there's a lot of money in Florida, and there's a lot of alumni in Florida.
Yeah.
So, it does frustrate me when I'm seeing, like OU building a multi-million-dollar standalone gymnastics facility when they just built a $30 million softball facility. One after another. Like every time you go to these road games, which is something I've really enjoyed, is like, man, what's going on? You got these schools that don't win anything, and they're building everything.
No
Florida,
doubt.
And they're like, well, maybe we'll build something.
Right. Well, and you look at Texas A&M, for instance, is on top of the standings now at 13-4, and 2 of the losses came in College Station to Florida. So it just speaks to, Rob, this SEC, pretty much, Oklahoma coming in, winning the national title. We saw what happened in basketball. Football has always been there, but it really, it's there in every sport.
Well, you're talking about building all these brick and mortar facilities. I really think you could play in, to borrow the term used about that guy's house and Coming to America. You're looking for a really nasty place to stay. You can stay at my house. It's a real split hole. Yeah, okay. Your facilities now can be great, but the conversation before they leave is how much. This is my routing number. This is my account number. There's a 0 in front of it. But I don't know how much, and I saw where Oklahoma built that amazing softball facility. I mean, it is. But how much you going to put into golf? They play the SEC championship every year at one of the great places, Sea Island or St. Simon's. It starts tomorrow. I just think that, the Gators, Florida and Auburn were 2 of the last schools in the SEC to build an indoor football practice facility because they're both so far south. But when a hurricane sits there for 2 or 3 days, you can't get any work in because of lightning. Right. We live in a day and age now where practices are canceled in advance. I grew up, it did not rain or thunder or lightning around the practice field. God didn't let that happen. I say, it's raining down the street. It doesn't, the coach would go, it ain't raining here. Where are you?
Right. Let's get it. Right.
But I think Florida, again, these are rich man's problems, like being in the highest tax bracket. So what?
Right.
Florida, and again, I can give you a different perspective. Their athletic department is so strong, they don't have to put the money in because they kind of are the standard. They've won 107 more SEC championships combined than their closest rival in the SEC, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
107. And I'm talking all sports, but hell, they matter.
Right.
That's impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that, like as you continue to just watch and Florida, they know it. And this is kind of and it's funny you brought that up, Dan, and we'll get you out of here. But, it's funny that the people that complain about what they're going to do, the facelift that Ben Hill Griffin is going to get and things like that. And Dan, you've been particularly to places in Texas, Oklahoma, and we've been a couple places together. It does matter. And those places do look better. And I think you're touching on a point. As much as people want to hang on to nostalgia and history, you better put the lipstick on the pig, or it's just not happening anymore. And you know, you talked about it too, Rob. This matters. So the people, you know, get on board. Don't talk about canceling your season tickets if the stadium doesn't look right, because it's changing. They got to put handrails in. They got to get compliant, and it's going to get a facelift. So people that are hanging on to that history, the teams that we compete against are building the Taj Mahals. So we got to get in there too, for sure.
Right. Those people at those games write those checks. So,
yeah,
you know,
no doubt.
They want some nice stuff too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right.
Well, Dan, we appreciate you, man. Definitely appreciate you coming on. Great work on gymnastics. Look forward to seeing you on the softball trail, and we'll be talking to you soon, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Enjoyed it.
Appreciate
seeing you, Dan.
Right.
By the way, one more question. How many Final Fours has Florida Gymnastics been to in the last 10 years?
Like 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Right.
Just remember.
You would take that in basketball and twice
Not
on Sunday.
Counting
Yeah.
COVID. I know you want the national.
No COVID year, but
there's a lot of schools that have never even been there.
Right,
I mean, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, Missouri finished 3rd. That was the highest they'd ever finished in their program history.
Right.
So, you know, they're rolling.
Yeah, no doubt.
They're rolling.
All right, Dan. Good seeing you, buddy.
That's what I'm here for, this kind of information. Dan Bond, who really is one of the maestros of gymnastics. He does a great job on it. He knows like the back of his hand. And to hear Rob explain to me which one now is which is on the check, which is the number that's right, the account number, and what's
the routing number and account number.
Well,
ACH it in there. It's $20.
Right.
Put it on my tab.
The accounting number's on the left. Routing numbers on the left, right?
Yeah. Out here, and then the account number right there.
All right, Dan. We'll talk to you, buddy.
Just hold it up on the screen, and we'll point it out to you, buddy.
I'll do that.
All right, Dan.
Well,
see you later,
buddy. Always a pleasure. And,
thank you. Great job, brother.
High words coming from you, so I appreciate it.
Softball and gymnastics.
Yes, sir.
Great job for us. Dallas Bureau Chief.
Yeah.
Right.
See you, Dan.
Good night.
All right. With that, before we bring Buddy in, we'll talk about our friends at Meldon Law. Definitely, appreciate the folks at Meldon Law. Meldon Law, we won't back down. Just doing a lot for the University of Florida. Got to see the Meldons quite a bit at the Final Four in San Antonio. Just dialed into everything Florida athletics, but Florida as a whole. The Gainesville community with, like I said, the giveaways will continue through the spring and then pick up again in the fall with a lot of good opportunities to not just do athletic programs, but go to see a show, different things like that. But the most important thing is if you go to Meldon Law, and a lot of their work is personal injury and things like that. But if you have an issue that they can't help you with, they can point you in the right direction. I mean, they have those people on standby just to write it down, say, call this person, and they can help you. So Meldon Law, proven lawyers since 1971. Meldon Law, we won't back down. And with that, we welcome in our good friend, the man, the myth, the legend, my mentor, Buddy Martin. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, yeah, I'm good. I'm doing okay.
You're on Central Time now. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I just, had a long day. Started this morning with Shane's show, and guys have too. And my wife was giving the eye over, like, "Are you doing another show over here tonight?"
Well, she loves me, so tell her it's for me. So that's She
gave a thumbs up. She said, "You're good."
Okay, appreciate it.
Mostly it's Marcia she likes the best.
Yeah, she's in the other room. I get her, but
Marcia brought her breakfast to us on her night after she got married.
That's true. That's right. She did. But buddy, I want to just backtrack a little bit, just because I know you're pretty fond of this guy, and Denzel Aberdeen. I think we talked about him leaving. But then the announcement that he is headed to Kentucky is quite interesting, just because, like I said, that's like a blood rivalry, is becoming basketball. I think, Donovan kind of ushered it in and kind of kicked in the door, And then it's kind of been that way since. So Aberdeen going to Kentucky, I'd heard Georgia, maybe UCF, going back home. But were you surprised by him choosing Kentucky?
I was. Good job by the executive producer putting that information on the screen there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Good job again. We have a lot of unsung people here in this organization that do. Everybody does a great job. Everybody has one thing in mind. We're kind of like the 2025 Gator basketball team. We sort of all pitch in. We don't really who Gator gets the credit. Everybody knows that Loren is a star and carries the ball for us.
No,
we're just all proud to be along with Rob, and he's in the morning. So now, seriously, I look at guys like Brendan. Chris Spears does an amazing job.
He is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. He does
great eye. Excellent.
And then Dan Bond, who's just always there. And we have other people who do that. I'll introduce you to some down the line coming soon. So a lot of people make Gator big what it is, and we do appreciate you. Yes, the answer, and I've been railing against this so much that people want me to shut up because I'm about to become Rob Browne if I'm not careful. And Rob Browne is the resident get off my lawn guy. And I can't start challenging him. But I raised this question last night and again today on Shane's show. Now, you all know Shane, Mr. Go Along, Get Along, who has a heart rate of about 4.
Yeah, always chill. That makes a good quarterback, though. So, yeah.
I know. Never it's like, okay, well, this is how it is now. And this is the way the game is played. It's about the money. And they don't want Denzel Aberdeen. They got a good reason. And I'm sure that I trust my coaches. Forget all that, okay? Let's get to the heart of the issue for Gator fans. Now, I know I'm probably one of the few that feel this way, but I'm still feeling this way. You can do what you want to do in terms of your future and go with whoever you want to. When you go across the street and play, if you're Macy's, you go to Gimbel's. If you're Florida, you go to Georgia. That pretty much for me as a consumer of this product called Gators, I'm done with you, basically. I don't wish you ill will. I got no reason to pull for you. Look, what is a fan? It's an emotional and financial investment in something they believe in. I noticed that, well, that buddy, you're old school, that's old news. No one cares about that, et cetera, et cetera. This is modern football. I get it. It's a free market, Rob. I said that from day one.
Yep.
Everybody else was moaning about all this stuff. It's going to be what it's going to be. But it's an end change. Well, look, people change all the time. They go all different places all the time. Coach Spurrier went to South Carolina. That's not the same thing as going to the dark side. Denzel Aberdeen went to the dark side. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't have because he got a big payday. And it was a beautiful masterpiece that was built by Todd Golden. And Denzel had all the promise that it was going to be his team. And he got offered a lot of money, apparently. I don't know how much. We hear rumors. And then Todd Golden decided he either didn't have the money, didn't want to keep him, and he's gone. Is that the end of the world? No. But I'm going to go back to Jack Pyburn. Remember him? Goes to LSU. I didn't like that at all. I thought that guy could still be a player. And I'm going to go to Mike White. It's not okay with me that Mike White jumped ship and went to the enemy. Now I'm going to go to Trevor Etienne. That's not okay with me. And now Denzel Aberdeen is not okay either. Why? Because who they chose to go to as a fan, and as a journalist, whatever. So, you can tell me, someone stated it well today, and I'm going to shut up and let you guys talk on Shane's show. Shane's like, it's okay. It's the way it is. It's whatever. No, I don't care. I do care. Trust your coaches. I trust him. That's not the point. It's the fact that they really turned and went to the other side. And someone said, here's what it's like. Supposing you're engaged to a woman and she jilts you. And then you get married and that woman comes back along in your life. Are you going to want to talk to her? No, we're done with this, right? That's how I feel about it. So maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm just old fashioned. I don't like it. But don't do what you want to, but don't expect me to go to Spurrier's Gridiron Rail and buy Denzel a steak dinner. Of course, he can buy his own. My point is, I ain't buying him no drinks either. So how I feel about it, and I think a lot of fans feel that way, but don't want to say it.
Right. And, no, I agree, buddy. It's definitely a slippery slope. And it's something that I think those of us that grew up in a certain area, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier today with one of the walk-ons that's transferring, and and I agree, just leave. These soliloquies and all those things publicly, you can go shake them.
A big statement, a picture, all his
yeah.
Loren, who is this guy?
Right, yeah.
Of him.
And he was a walk-on. I can't remember his name, but and no offense to the young man. I mean, I'm sure he'll be a great college player somewhere.
Could be. We do not care.
Yeah, but and I'm gonna put a bow on it this way and say that I think it's where it is now. We've got to get used to it. And the one good thing I'll say is today, Ty Golden signed both Xavier Lee as well as CJ Ingram.
Yeah,
and I think that, the program obviously is in good shape. And I think if not, it's an even, if not better trade. And, we're going to put a bow on and say, if Chinyelu and Condon come back, it's going to be a team that could be headed to Indy next year as well, because they're going to be pretty athletic and they're going to be pretty good. So, and I think the league's going to be a little down. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was this year, Rob. We can talk about that, another time, but I think it'll come back to the pack a little bit, which might make the road a little easier. But speaking of roads, the biggest road that you can climb as a player, football player, is the NFL draft. And Brendan had our stats down there, and I asked him to bring them back. But one thing I want to talk about, you talk about the top running backs. You got, Ashton Genty, you got Amarian Hampton, Trayvon Henderson, Quinshad Judkins, Cam Scatterbo, who kind of became a household name later in the year, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, who had a really good year, I think he won the Doak Walker, or was Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC, I think. But at 25, you got Montrell Johnson Jr., who I think, buddy, the one thing I think Jabbar Jaluk running backs, and this is something I think he's done all the way back to his days at LSU, is he keeps us stable and he keeps those guys fresh. And you look at Trevor Etienne at 14 and Montrell Johnson at 25, I'm not sure that should be flipped in my opinion, because the one thing about Jaluk running backs outside of Trevor Etienne, and I'm not sure he'd ever, is they'll step up and strike you when you blitz and they'll block. And I think that's what teams are really going to like about a guy like Montrell Johnson Jr.
I agree. And he's made some big blocks and he can protect the quarterback. And I said this, as you know, Loren, and Rob, join in here because you know a little football. But I think the biggest problem Etienne had is that he couldn't block the blitz. Yeah. And he was too small. They said a big guy. It's very simple. You got a guy, and Montrell's not small, but you put Montrell up at, what was he, 215 maybe at most, and send a 395-pound edge rusher. He's not going to block him. It's just a physical science fact that he's not, and he didn't have a whole lot of desire to block him. So in the end, you're saying, I'm putting my quarterback at risk. You got one of the terrific quarterbacks in college football. You don't want to have him out there on the edge and not being protected. And I can see why Jaluk was probably a little bit reticent. And, and he's got guys that can carry the rock and block.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, Etienne's a guy that, didn't have a lot of mileage, but, has that deficiency, I think, as a blocker, which, he's kind of tough to be an every down back. He's almost maybe like a third down back, but if you can't pass block, that's going to be tough. But a guy like Montrell Johnson, who doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires, is going to be appealing to a lot of NFL programs.
Well, we're living in an era now where running backs ask the coaches not to have them carry the ball 35 times a game. They're okay with 12 or 14 carries. Another player, you didn't mention, who's another 5'9" guy, is Jarquez Hunter at Auburn. I know Jarquez, and he's 5'9", but the guys that can leg press a ton, those are your best running backs. If you take a look at the top 10 running backs all time, I'll be shocked. Other than Jim Brown, yardage wise, any of them over 5'9" or 5'10".
Yeah, I mean Eric Dickerson, what was he, 6'1", 6'2", and he'd be
6'3".
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's anomalous. Yeah, correct. And Derrick Henry,
there's a few of them.
Yeah, a few.
There's
but
a
you're right.
few. But I think that, buddy, and you were right. If you can't pick up the blitz, I mean, you're not going to play, and you're gonna watch a lot. And we're starting to see running backs' values increase. Bijan Robinson last year from Texas went number 9. Ashton Gentry from Boise this year could be a top 5 guy.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, there was a hangover from a former Escambia County High School stud who was the number 4 pick in the 2012 draft, Trent Richardson from Alabama, because he went to the Colts. And all we remember was the 30 for 30 about him and having 20 family members with Netflix accounts and stuff. And, good guy. He really is. But when he didn't make it with the Colts, they burned him. But Montrell had an injury last year. That probably slowed his draft stock a little bit, because people didn't get as much tape on him. Right. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to talk about another Florida guy. Well, really 2, but Chimere Dike, who, it's funny when and Buddy, you remember, who's this guy? Wisconsin. Yeah. What's he going to be?
Yeah.
And
I was a doubter.
You were. Oh, I didn't know you were a doubter. See, I wasn't a doubter because I'd seen him play at Wisconsin, but they have him right now 19th, and Brendan put the could be a steal, as a 3rd or 4th round pick. But he's somebody I think that, where the combine, a lot of people say, well, the combine, but the combine worked for him. I think he went and ran 4.34 and has really, got himself. I mean, he's ahead of Tez Johnson from Oregon, Xavier Restrepo. I mean, he's ahead of some Brew McCoy, who's a bigger guy. I think DK could be a guy, much like Pearsall last year, that could really, find himself maybe a day 1, but early day 2, and should have a long career in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm getting a message from the executive producer here. I mean, look, I'll leave that to you. You're a receiver expert. I mean, it looks like he showed up and showed out. Mm-hmm. He convinced me. After I saw he was a big play receiver, good hands. As far as I can tell, his routes looked like they were run well, could block a little bit, and just an all-around. He got good speed. So he was a surprise. But again, if you get Billy Gonzalez for a coach, you get a lot of things can happen. And let me get to your executive producer here one sec. Okay.
Hey, I'll throw in another big guy who's going to be in the top 10 all time. 6'3" out of Yulee, Florida.
Derrick Henry. Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt about it.
He is. He popped on the scene in 2013 in the Sugar Bowl, made a big 75-yard touchdown run against Oklahoma, and Alabama lost. But what do you have? 12,000 yards rushing in high school.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. And Buddy, maybe you could dispel this finally. Was Derrick Henry? Did Derrick Henry want to go to the prevailing story? Derrick Henry wanted to go to Florida, but Muschamp wanted to make him a linebacker instead of playing running back. Do you know if there's any truth to that? Muschamp has said that that's not true, but is there any? Have you heard that story or any truth to that?
I've never heard that story. No.
Okay. All right.
But it is true that Joe Paterno.
I don't. There's a lot of stories. I just can't verify that one. I don't know.
Right. And then you got Elijhah Badger, 34th. Once again, another guy that I think helped himself this past season with the transfer to Florida, 34th ranked. And then at linebacker and D tackle, pretty interesting. Cam Jackson is 22nd best defensive tackle. I think played really well the last 4 games. So, looking at 2 years ago, the pro day, it was almost like a morgue, whereas, not much flavor at all. this year. We talked about it, a lot different field, but these guys they're going to get drafted. I mean, Rob, you talk about, Chimere James, 18th. I mean, these are guys, when you get drafted, you're the 18th best player at your position, you're probably going to make a roster and be there a while. I mean, you're talking second, third round picks, and a guy that, will be able to help on special teams, runs well, but totally a different twist that maybe speaks to the roster that Billy Napier is building. And just like I said, should be a fun draft for the Florida Gators and something to grow on for sure.
Yeah, you get 6 or 7 guys that, and having not been winning the last 3 years, last year you won 8, but a 5 and 6 win seasons, that's impressive. Here's an interesting stat. The numbers are starting to come out since the portal came out October 15th of 2018. Guys that transfer down, from, say, Florida to a lesser school, let's say they go to Florida Atlantic, their NFL careers, they're getting about 1.12 starts on average. We're starting to see some numbers, definitive data, that all this moving around, maybe you're good at adapting to new systems, but technique-wise, coaching-wise, fundamental-wise, it's starting to show what we've been saying. It's a negative. You better watch Oklahoma. They got my friend Jim Nagy, former director of the Reese's Pieces Senior Bowl. He's their new GM. He pulled out Ott, the running back from Cal. That won't be the last one. He knows how to find a player. He's got, I've seen him, 4 Super Bowl rings from his time with Belichick, the Packers, and Pete Carroll. Oklahoma doesn't have Texas money, but they got smart money, and they'll go get some players. But I think the Gators, if you get 6 players drafted this year, Billy Napier is going to be written a lot more, because I'm hearing Dallas Wilson is one of those guys that you need to have him come off the bus first when you go on the road.
Yeah, he does look the part. But I mean, like I said, J. Michael Sturdivant is big, and Nashawn Montgomery, and then they all look the part. And then, like I tell people, the crazy thing is, for as much as Dallas Wilson is getting the attention, there's another receiver from Tampa, last name Wilson, that when he's healthy is as good as anybody in the country. And I mean, in Trey Wilson. So, the cupboard is, is full. But, when we talked about, guys helping themselves, another guy that I think people were a little surprised about when he declared, but it looks like it was a good opportunity for him, is Chimere James, buddy. And, with the way that the NFL has become a little more specialized, where you have situational linebackers, I see him as somebody who, once again, should be able to make a roster and have quite an NFL career.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm having to get in and out here with Brendan. You can't seem to get back on to close the show. So
okay.
Apologize for that. I'm just trying to see if I can get a hold of him. But no, I mean, I missed some of that. So repeat it again.
No, I was just saying, a guy, I think people were kind of surprised that maybe he shouldn't, maybe he should have, with Chimere James. And, now somebody that looks like, could be, particularly with, little slight of size, but with the situational defenses now, could find himself with his versatility, ability to run, could find himself drafted early and be part of a roster for quite some time.
Yeah, I was surprised at him. I thought he needed another year. But on the other hand, we've seen these cases of players not knowing their value. And you saw what happened in Tennessee. We've seen what happened to quarterbacks who think they're worth a lot more than what they are. And that is really the hard thing. Knowing the market is a tough thing. If you're in a housing market and you got a house that you think, like I bought a house one time for $45,000. I thought, it was a great house, loved it, it's terrific. And I thought, if I can make $50,000 on this house, I'll be thrilled to death. When I moved to New York, I got, I made 60 or 65. That's good for me. I was thrilled. I thought it was great. But guess what? That house sold for last year. $1.2 million.
Oh, wow.
Am I happy about it? No. But the market was different then. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was crazy. Knowing the market value is the key, and that's the hard thing for these players not to know. I don't know how much Denzel Aberdeen is worth. Apparently a lot more than we thought.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you can't really fault him, but I don't have to like it. I'm getting more and more like Nick Saban every day, you know. and I understand that it's the way of the world and all that, but I don't have to like it, Rob, do I?
Yeah, no, and you're right about the free market. I live it. We all live it. I say that just like you do every day. I get so much criticism, but it's going to turn. The data that we just gave out about these guys transferring around, it is affecting your NFL career. The data's proving it. And once you do a PowerPoint presentation or 2 or 3, it's going to start getting in these guys' heads, and they're going to go, look, we can all leave and do whatever we want as adults, but we don't do it because we know how risky that is. Dan talked about Florida gymnastics. Hey, man, if you're getting to 8 of the last 10 Final Fours, I know you want to win the whole damn thing. It's going to happen. Sooner or later, a race always goes to the horse who thinks he can.
Well, and like I said, I mean, 8 out of 10 out of the last 10 Final Fours, Mike White would still be the coach at Florida. I mean, come on, I mean, that's. But I want to talk about
governor,
right? I want to talk about a couple of things. Shout out to a Starstruck podcast, but they were talking about Tamika Catchings, and I want to button up what you said, Rob. She was talking about. She was on there and she was talking about the transfers, and she said, when you go for a job interview and you've been at 4 different firms in 4 different years, that doesn't look good to recruiters. And I think that's a cautionary tale for moving around. And another cautionary tale, and we can end on this, is your thoughts on why do you have to draft a quarterback, number one? I don't understand that about the draft. We talk about guys like Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, who
if you listen, important player.
Well, but if you listen to the experts, and I'm just talking about this draft class, if you'd put it in last year's class,
this was not a good one. Right.
Those guys would not have been even maybe first day picks. They would have been second to third round picks.
Cam Ward's the 7th pick from last year.
Yeah,
but I got to tell you, after this year, I said this guy gets rid of the ball quick. He knows the game. And his delivery is good. He might make it in the league. I never thought he was the number 1 overall pick.
Talking about Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Shadur signs. Say one thing, reverting back to what we're discussing about what's wrong. I hate to quote Paul Feinbaum. I love Paul, but I don't need his validation. But he said something today and asked about the portal and said, "What's wrong with it?" He said, "In first, I was for it because it gave players more freedom, and the coaches could come and go and step away from contracts, and players had no rebuttal. Now they have that, but it has gotten too liberal and gone too far, and now the players have complete control, and it's become a smash grab of what it is. So anyway, that's a problem. Again, we don't have to like it, do we, guys? It's nothing against the kids. I'm glad they're getting this opportunity. And I'm going to say one more thing that's going to be braggy, and I don't care. But I want, because I don't talk about this, but we all think we have some kind of legacy, right? I mean, we think we do. We hope we do something. Rob Browne, he had all those funny voices he did, whatever. And Loren Meadows knew about coaching, whatever. But one of the things that made me the proudest I've heard in a long time, if you guys know me, I am prouder of the work I've done to help other people do well as a writer and a reporter and a columnist. That's what I'm proudest of. And out of the blue, I got this note from Edgar Thompson. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Loren, right now. We just said, shout out from Jaime Diaz. Now, you guys don't know who Jaime Diaz is. He's one of the 2 or 3 best golf writers in the world. He's at the New York Times now. He came up through the ranks. He's now about 64 or 65. But one time he was a hot young guy. He and Rick Riley were like this. And they were young reporters and writers when they came in 1986 to the Masters, one of the first ones. And they had an unbelievable time because they thought the old guard is done, Rob. They said, these guys on Nicklaus, forget about him. He'll never win another golf tournament, let alone a major. And I met him one night in a restaurant. I heard him say, we talked about it. I said, well, I don't know if Nicklaus will win a Masters, but he'll win again. I do feel he will. Well, turns out he won the Masters that year. So imagine yourself, Loren, you're a writer too. If you're sitting down at a computer to write the biggest story of your life, okay? I mean, you talk about double clutching. You're saying, like, my gosh, what did I just see? How do I express it? How do I say it? That particular day, Rick Riley was sitting right behind me. And this is a story that happened. And then Jaime knew this story, and he told it. Is that when Nicklaus won it, Riley came and sat down in his seat in the Masters behind me, and he kept saying, it's too big. It's too big. It's just too damn big. Now, Rick was a cool guy and a really great writer and whatever, but he reached his choking point. And he said, Jaime says, he had a friend named Buddy Martin who was sitting next to him, and he turned around and told him, Rick, put your notebook down. Write what you just saw. Go back and put your quotes in the story after you've written it. He said, Rick did it, and he said it was one of the greatest stories I ever read. Now, that made me feel good, not going to take any credit for it. I thought, you know what? Somebody does see you, right, Rob? You got younger interns and work with you, and they do remember. And Loren, you've been a coach and a teacher. It makes your heart good to know that they're listening. Just like a mother, my wife got a note from her son, Tommy Ford, the sheriff here, who's now on an airplane to Europe. And he sent her a song at Easter and said, Mom, I remember this when I was younger. We listened to this together. She was so overwhelmed by it because it validated that he was listening to me. He learned something. And it's that voila experience, Rob and Loren, that you hope for with your children, grandchildren, your colleagues, and your young interns. That's what makes life worth living to me.
Yeah, no doubt. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say, I mean, my dad is 96 as an architect. I wish I'd have been an architect because every architect, it's like with what they say about my dad, it makes me feel good. They said they broke the mold when they made him. It matters what you do. You have an impact on people's lives. This morning, we got Ralph Russo up in Brooklyn. 20 years, he was AP's national college football writer. Now he's the senior writer at The Athletic for college football. Buddy pops in, and you could see Ralph like going, "Hey, Mr. Martin." I mean, that says the first time I had Buddy on our show, September 11th, 2021. He and Brendan driving the old way. He's going, "This is the way the old Gators go." They were going up there to the Alabama-Florida game. Yeah. I'll never forget the reaction of everybody in the studio at Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis. They go, "You got to get that guy back on. He's awesome." I said, I've seen him on Feinbaum for a long time, Buddy Martin. I said, we got to get him back on. I got his number from Lauren Smith. But it matters because Ralph Russo wasn't the first one. There's a lot of these people, and they come on. They love Buddy. You see what Ron Higgins, God bless, in Baton Rouge goes, oh, man. But it matters because we've all been in the press box, and we've seen those late nights whenever, and the writers and the young writer gets to spend some time with a Buddy Martin or, Ralph Russo or Tony Barnhart, whatever, and they take the time to give a damn. Mm-hmm. It comes back to you. You'll have all the success in life you want. Mr. Woodruff said it in Atlanta, one of the big Coca-Cola guys, as long as you don't mind who gets the credit.
Exactly. You're right. And by the way, thank you. I didn't mean to turn to a brag fest. I don't want
No, it's not. It's pretty damn cool, buddy. Well, I tell people, I've got Michelangelo as my art instructor to help me write.
I feel like I'm passing a torch to you guys. You two guys are going to be doing this. And Brendan, go find some young people and get them inspired about storytelling. I don't care if they talk it or if they write it.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have storytellers. We need them.
You're right.
Yeah.
It makes me feel great that you two guys have an appreciation for it. I'm sorry if I've had to be about me. I don't want it to be about me. I just want people to know the importance of storytellers and inspiring others to do well.
Well, no, I think that I mean, you look at the the relationships and the group that we have here, and guys like Ben Troop, and even with Pot Up with Matthews. I mean, the relationships and with different shows and with Rob, and just the relationships that you build through others. And buddy, I mean, I don't know, we hit it off, and I was still a resident of Dayton, Ohio. I mean, it was more just built on mutual respect and an understanding of, this guy knows his stuff. And when I met you, I was like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And shout out to David Aronoff, because he said I don't give him enough credit. He's the one that actually brought me to the Buddy Martin show. When I met him, he said, man, you should check out this guy, Buddy Martin, and I did. So I always thank Aronoff for that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think you look at, maybe that's the rub, or the thought at the end is, no matter where this thing goes, as far as the money and the transfer portal and all these guys, is we hope these young men continue to appreciate the people that helped them get there, that they never lose sight of where they came from, what mom and daddy taught them, but also those coaches, those neighbors, those people that were instrumental in them getting there. So I think that maybe is something that you hope, no matter what, that integrity, humbleness, honesty, gratitude remain, part of the equation. So, I was in a group text with On3 put out, it's kind of cool. On3 put out the best players from each high school. You can look on and find the top rated guys. And I've been on this group text for they're like, coach, what do you think? And this, that, and the other. And to still have them call you coach and reminisce about you coaching them and working with them. And obviously I was an assistant, but the head coach and those kind of things. So, that's, if I was to impart anything on the young men, like Walter Clayton said, he said a lot, but the first thing he said was, I can't wait to see my mama.
Yeah.
Which means that mom is important. Obviously, buddy, I'm sure Rob, we all had great relationships with our mothers, and just people that were around us. So, and obviously that helps us do the shows, because sometimes our friends come on the show and people that have helped us. But, with that, we can kind of wrap it up. Rob, who you got?
Walter Clayton. I was just about to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
All the things we said we love the embodiment of, he has it.
Yeah.
As a player, including his mama.
Yeah. Loves his mama. Yeah.
So thanks for letting me share that. We're all brothers here. We're going to keep this flame burning for a while, guys.
No doubt.
Thanks, Loren, for having me on. Rob, good talking to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rob, who you got on tomorrow?
Got at Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com out in Austin, Jacques Doucet in Baton Rouge, Channel 9, Oakley the Intern, McFerrin in Auburn, Dudley Dawson in Fayetteville, Madden Iamaliava, what's going on there? Vince Ferrara on the Hill in Knoxville, and the greatest executive producer on the planet, Brendan Martin, who makes these things happen, who lives by the motto, we find excuses to win. The only easy day was yesterday. So we're going to have fun.
Buddy, who we got on the Wednesday edition of the Buddy Martin Show?
Well, we're going to have a treat, Frank Frangie from Jacksonville, NFL Draft. He's a voice of
Oh, man.
And we're going to talk about that. I don't do much draft, but I am going to do. And then we've got we've got a young guy named Rob Browne coming to fill in for a guy named Loren Meadows. Oh, that's Thursday.
That's Thursday.
Thursday.
I'm
ready.
Okay.
Pete Wilbur will be on there next. Right. So we're going to have a good show tomorrow night. It's going to be fun. And thanks, everybody. And by the way, can I say one more thing? Do not miss Franz Baird's series on Gators National Championship. He's into part 3, about to write part 4. Franz is doing a dead gum book.
Yeah.
Amazing, and he's got great detail in it. Great reporting and excellent writing. I highly recommend get on there and spend $5 and get yourself a membership to Gator Bait just to read Franz. That's worth it. If you don't like it, I'll get Rob to write you a check.
Yeah, he was on the tip of the spear all season long about it. And I won my bet. I had Florida to beat Houston. Gators win.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked about the people at Gator Bait, and I mean, shout out to Franz Beard, one of my favorite writers to this day, even though I consider him a friend and a brother. Always a joy to read Franz, and Franz is unbelievable. And talk about the unbelievable or the work that people are doing, the work that Titan MRI and Imaging is doing. Titan MRI is now Titan MRI and Imaging. Titan MRI and Imaging acquired Highfield MRI. Joe Calorio started Highfield MRI in 1997. Now he's back. Titan MRI and Imaging now has 3 locations, 2 in Gainesville with its Park Avenue location, and now at the Millennium Center, and 1 in Lake City, serving all of Columbia County, as well as our friends in Valdosta, Georgia. Titan MRI and Imaging offers the same great customer service, now accepts insurance or through their convenient self-pay options. They offer MRIs, CT scans, x-rays, ultrasounds, easy scheduling, including evening, larger MRI machines for people like myself who are claustrophobic, no ERs, no hospitals, coming soon to Ocala to better serve Marion County and the surrounding area. Titan MRI and Imaging, it's your choice, the only obvious choice. And with that, gentlemen, we will say good night. Appreciate your work, buddy. Always good to talk to you, and appreciate your storytelling. And I even remember in '86 when, and I'm not a golf guy, but I remember I read that article by Rick Rouse. Was that the one in Sports Illustrated? Was that
it was in Sports Illustrated? Yeah, we're going to do it. One day we're going to start a show, and Rob's going to want to listen to it, called The Old Sports Writers.
Yeah,
I love it. Old sports writers sitting around talking stories.
But I remember that cover with him doing the putter.
Yeah,
on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So I mean, if you like sports, you like sports, man, and that's what I tell people. I know they get mad at certain shows for talking a little golf, but if you ever tried to hit a golf ball, you'll respect the golfer.
Exactly. All right, I'll take this out, brother. Thank you.
All right, man. Good to talk to you guys. Appreciate you joining us on the Tuesday edition of the Buddy Martin Show. Good things to come for SEC sidelines and the entire operation. Look forward to all of it, and appreciate you guys.
Ditto. Thank you.